Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Regional Radio Sports Network. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Regional Radio Sports Network. We are broadcasting live and in living color from Bethel Brady, State Road 23, and beautiful Granger, Indiana. We welcome you to the Coach's Box. My name is Paul Condry. Glad that you can stop along for the ride through the toy department of life. Very special guest tonight is Mike Davidson, the head football coach at Mishawaka Marian. Also, Thiago Pinto, the head men's soccer coach at Bethel University, one of the top teams in all the land, will be joining us. Alongside my broadcast partner here tonight, Mike Fleischman. He'll have Mike's game tomorrow right here on 91.1 FM as we're anticipating a great matchup between the Marian Knights and the Penn Kingsmen. So let's get right to it here, Michael. First of all, great to see you, and I hope your family as well, and excited about as we're hitting this midway point. And have you figured everything out right now? 5 games in. What do you think?
Everything is a strong word, but we're getting there. We're making strides each and every week, and that's by week 9, then maybe we got everything figured out and we make a little run.
Okay, so giving you that hypothetical question, I already know the answer, but would you really have any problems with going 8 or 9-0 in the season and losing it in the first round, or going, let's say, 4-5 in the regular season, and the next thing you know, you're in the semi-state?
Option 2.
Yeah.
I mean, whatever year was Northwood.
Yeah. They were 3-7
ish, somewhere in there.
Yeah. I mean, that was an amazing run.
Yeah. I mean, I'll take that all day and every day. Not that I don't appreciate, and I'm as competitive as the next guy.
Yes,
but,
you are.
But this is about building each and every week, and no matter if you're 5-0 at this point or 2-3 like we are, if you're getting better each and every week, ultimately you don't want to peak weeks 5, 6, and 7. You want to be peaking 9, 10, 11.
Coach, I'm curious as to what the process is for you. Like when you take a look and identify those goals of here's how the team needs to get better. Kind of take us through what you look at and how you come up with not only areas of improvement but how to implement them.
Each year's a little different. I mean, you got a different group of guys, different levels of not necessarily abilities, but experience, I think, is a big key. And that's been our biggest issue. We got such a young team, inexperienced team, that each week's been a little bit different, frankly. I go back to week 1 at Mishawaka and facing I think they're 2 or 3 in 5A.
Number
week
2.
1 with, I think we had 12 or 13 first-time starters out there on the field. That's a tall task. So what do you do? What do you learn from that? And the big thing was, okay, we showed glimpses, and we had glimpses of sustaining a drive. We had glimpses of stopping them and their running game, but we didn't sustain that over the course of 4 quarters. And then last week against Adams was the first time where we put together. It wasn't a pretty 4 quarters of football, but from a competitive standpoint, we fought and battled an entire 4 quarters. So there's been a little bit different area week to week. Sometimes it's scheme, sometimes it's mental and an emotional state that you really want to focus on, and you put all of it together because each week's a little piece of the puzzle. And like I said, I'm going to keep harping on weeks 9, 10, 11, 12. You get that puzzle put together, hopefully.
You look at 2 teams on this schedule: Mishawaka 5-0, ranked number 2; New Prairie number 7 in Class 4A, also at 5-0. So you got 2 teams that have been dynamic. You have 3 other teams. So realistically, you're 2-1 against the teams that, in my opinion, humble as it may be, you're 2-1.
Yeah.
And you should be 3-0. No offense, I don't want to take anything away against the Bremen Lions, but you probably should have beat the Bremen Lions when it was all said and done.
Yeah, I mean, I look back at that, and the focus, that Tuesday practice was, if not the worst, it was one of the worst. And it was a real great example of a young team learning how to come off of a win and still have a great focus and effort that week of practice, leading into a team that, and all the credit in the world to Coach Leeper, because they come out every year and they battle us hard. Whether they're on their worst year, best year, whether we're on our best year, worst year, they come out and they fight like heck against us. So all the credit in the world to them. But that Tuesday practice, I hark back on for the last 3 weeks each Tuesday as far as guys. You see what happens when you don't bring that effort and focus on a frankly the most important day of the week is Tuesday for us. So it was a learning experience. Unfortunately, that shows up in the win-loss column. But I think our guys, I can look back at following each one of our losses. We've grown that following week. So we continue. I don't want to continue the losing part, but
sure,
we continue the growth, and I like where we're going to be.
I would say this, that I would match up looking at the sectional 26 field, which features 4-1 Fairfield, 4-1 West Noble. And you have 3 teams that are 3-2. You have Jimtown, Knox, and Glenn. A couple teams that are at 2-3, Lakeland and Marion, and Clay at 0-5. So having said that, when I'm going to be doing the pairing show with Bob Lovell in a couple weeks, the first thing that I will point out is that the strength of schedule for Mishawaka Marian, especially regardless of what the record is going to be at the end of the season, because you've got Penn coming up tomorrow. You've got Angola, Elkhart, and South Bend St. Joe. And once again, that St. Joe game is a game that you can't even – I don't care if both teams are 0-8 or 0-9 or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's one of those. It's one of those games.
Yeah,
it's one of those games. So
I hate to use my favorite cliche that you can throw that record out with the bathwater. Okay, but having said all that, this is definitely a winnable sectional because if you look at the other teams that are on these schedules, and I did some comparative shopping earlier this afternoon. You play the most difficult schedule of anybody in this sectional field. So I would automatically, and I'm going to say this, I don't care if you're going into the tournament at 2-7, I'm going to put you in that one of those things that you don't want to hear, a favorites role.
We want the target. I mean, and that's when you want to be, and I do believe we are one of the elite programs around.
Sure.
We want that target. We embrace that target. And I think our schedule, we play, one team smaller than us and everybody else is bigger. You look across the field. I was doing pregame last Friday, and looking across the field at Adams, and I mean the size and athleticism they got we don't compare to. So it certainly prepares us, and our kids are hungry. Our kids know that we're going through some growing pains, but I keep using the term growth. But yeah, we get down to weeks 10, 11, 12. We expect to compete for that sectional championship without a doubt.
We're live at Bethel Brady's. We're going to take a quick time out, come back with Mike Davidson, the head football coach of the Mishawaka Marian Knights, who's in his 5th season, a sparkling 43 wins and only 15 losses. We'll be back with Mike right after this short timeout on 91.1 FM Globe and Regional Radio Sports. Welcome back here to Bethel Brady's. Mike Fleischman, yours truly, Paul Condry. Glad you can join us here today. Also, thanks to Andrew Kirksey and Tiny Condry for their support here on our broadcast. We're glad you've spent Thursday night with us. Continuing our conversation with Mike Davidson, the head football coach at Mishawaka Marian High School. And Mike, I know that game coming up, and I know Flesh is going to ask you some of these same questions on the pregame show, but Mike and I, we were talking prior to the Penn Elkhart game. I think it was last Thursday or may have been Friday during the day or whatever the case may be. And Mike's general feeling is that this Penn team it's because of the difficulty of their schedule, it's hard to get a really good indicator on how good they are or where they're at in their situation, because they played some teams that honestly that could beat any team in America. Mm-hmm. That's how good some of the competition that they played.
Absolutely.
So it's hard to get a good indicator. So Mike and I both shared the same opinion that they would handle Elkhart relatively easily. Now, Matt Copsey, our longtime scribe, felt that was going to be I think he said a 2-point game, right?
Yeah, he had I think it was 24-22 was his prediction.
And that was pretty close.
That's pretty good.
Matt knows a little bit more about things than I do.
Yes.
So when I was in the region talking high school football on our pregame show, we were talking about the Marian and Penn matchup. I said, well, I think Penn's going to kick their butt tonight, blah, blah, blah. And that didn't turn out to be the case.
Well, one of the things we were looking at, Paul, was that Elkhart had conversely a schedule where their opponents going into last week were 2-14. And so we just felt that the quality of competition was going to yield a lopsided result. And then Elkhart comes out under first-year head coach Ramos in St. Louis and just comes out ready to play and plays Penn as hard as Penn gets played in conference throughout the year. And it was a really good game and an impressive win for Penn.
So you had a chance to look at the film. Tell me about what you thought of both teams, because you got them both coming up.
You're going to get me in trouble with one of the coaches, I guess.
That's right.
No, I think coming out, Elkhart was inspired, big atmosphere at home, and I think you saw that a little bit on film. They were flying around. They got a big, fast, athletic team that probably gave Penn a little bit of fits early on. But then Penn did, frankly, what championship-level programs do, and they answered the bell. They found a way. I thought they took control of the line of scrimmage a little bit better in the second half. And all the credit in the world to Penn, but at the same, I'm excited. I hope we're still playing. If we're not, and those guys are facing off in sectional time, I'm going to be making a trip out there.
That's a very, very formidable answer. Now, when you look at the matchup with Penn coming up tomorrow night, what is your biggest concern? Let's take your defense matched up against their offense. What concerns you in that dynamic?
Their size and physicality up front. I mean, you look at their three guards are 303, 330, or guard center guard is 303, 335, and 327 or something like that. And we're, I think, heavy up front is maybe 250 for us.
Hey.
So we got our work cut out for us in that regard. But if we can hold them up there, and we have struggled against running teams. New Prairie, we held strong for a half, and then they wore on us. So our offense has got to help our defense out a little bit in that regard, as far as when we got the ball, take care of it, move the chains, keep our defense off the field to allow those big guys, our quote unquote big guys up front, to catch their breath and not get worn down come the fourth quarter. On the other side of the ball, offensively, I think their linebackers are the most. They just get to the ball, get there angry, and they don't miss tackles. And that's been Penn football for, I don't know, decades.
Sure.
I mean,
it's in their DNA.
Yes, and so we're going to have to get them on some misdirections or something, play action, RPO a little bit. And that being said, there are no slouches on the perimeter, and they got number 8 and 9 up front, 97. I'm sorry to the fourth guy, because he's good too. Like they're just solid in all three levels, and they play fast and hungry. And so offensively, I already mentioned controlling the football. Getting 3rd and 1, we've got to convert. 2nd and 9 has got to become 3rd and 4 to make it convertible. And if we do that, we're giving ourselves a chance. If we get into 3rd and longs, it's going to be a long night for us.
Mike Fleischman, you've seen Penn a bunch, to say the least, and when you look at them, and I give you a little bit of inside scouting from your vantage point, because you have seen every game, you've called every game. What do you think that you see as positives from Corey's, both offensively and defensively?
On the offensive side, Jake Bayless has been the biggest positive. He is a guy who you can count on to return in the special teams phase, and then he is a tough running back. He is a kid that takes the majority of the carries. JoJo Williams actually has more rushing touchdowns right now, because I think they go to Williams for a change of pace once they go into the red zone. But Bayless takes a lot of carries, and he is deceptively fast, and that's something that I've said a lot of times about Penn running backs, is that once they see a hole, they are very well coached to accelerate into it, and he's a very quick player. He's good in the open field, and he's got good vision. They love to use him in the screen game as well. And DJ White, their receiver, who can get over the top of defenses. If he gets accurate throws from Nolan McCullough, DJ White is a very, very good weapon for them. And on the defensive side, Coach, I'm right with you. The linebackers get east and west really, really well. They get out onto the edges. They get out into the flat and tackle well out there. And the defensive line does exactly the same thing. They're tough up front. The guy you couldn't remember is Ryland Frazier, 17 probably.
17. Yep.
Yeah, and he really personifies, I think, that ability to have the play vision and the coaching to be able to get to the spot that he needs to be in and then make a tackle. And I think that's the strength of their offense is White and Bayless right now, and the strength of their defense is definitely in the box at the moment.
All right, so now that he's given your analysis, do you concur with what you've been able to see on film?
Yeah, I mean, and I didn't touch on their skilled guys on the offensive side, but 22, Bayless, you said?
Yep.
Bayless and 7 in the backfield, both those guys. 22 is, and this is no shot on him. I don't think he's the most talented, but he runs so hard, hits the hole with such speed and aggression. The first guy isn't bringing him down, and the second guy is hopefully hanging on for dear life. And 4 is lightning in a bottle. I mean, he's going to make a play over the top, or he's going to hurt you in the quick. Get a hitch, make that first defender miss a tackle, and go make a big play. So, absolutely, I think you're right on the head.
And you mentioned the offensive line. I didn't. I think to me, when I'm in a place where I'm not talking about the offensive line, that's a compliment to the offensive line, because that means they're doing the job. When McCullough is, he typically rolls out when he wants to throw. He wants to throw on the move, but they keep him clean for the most part. They open up good holes, and that's a unit that has been playing together for a long time. The tackles have been there for a long time. The 2 guards have been there for a long time. Sahib Al-Shui is a guy who was playing as a sophomore. The new addition, of course, is maybe their best offensive lineman, Auden Jones, as a junior. So when you're bringing in one new guy, and he's a guy right in the center of the line in a leadership role at snapping the ball, it's a pretty good situation.
Mike, when you look at the Penn's team right now at 3-2, and you went back, and I'm sure you've taken a look at the films, do you go and look at the films on the 2 games that they lost and say, okay, these guys did this to them, and that will be something that I think we can do, with the caveat of saying, well, wait a minute, we don't have Danny O'Neill, the quarterback at Cathedral, and you go to those type of scenarios. It's like, well, anybody can do that if you got a Division I quarterback or whatever the case, right?
You turn on the St. X film, and you're watching their offense.
Yeah.
And it is as clean and as polished, and there's
scary,
a poster child of what you want at the tight end position. There's a poster child of what you want at the left guard position. There's a poster child at each position. So, you got to pay attention to some things that they may have struggled with, but at the same time, are they struggling with it from a schematic standpoint where we can take advantage of it? Or are they struggling with it because Jimmy's and Joe's beat X's and O's? I mean, that's the old saying, and St. X and Cathedral got plenty of those guys. So, you look at that on both sides of the ball, kicking game as well, with the thought in the back of your mind, do we actually have a personnel that fits that? It'd be like, frankly, watching what Mishawaka did against us, and you're a spread team and saying, well, let's do what Mishawaka did. You're Bart Ball. You're not going to change that dramatically because of the personnel.
Let me, when you're taking on a team like Mishawaka, who you may or may not see a team that's going to run that offense throughout the course of the season. So you go into the season, and no matter how hard you prepare to run, as you like, I love that term, Bart Ball, you're going to play a little Bart Ball. And you know what they're going to do, and you know that it's assignment football, and you know what you got to do, but it's easier said than done. We've seen this with the service academies for years. Like, how in the heck are they beating Notre Dame, and whatever the case may be. So having said that, you can prepare for them all you want. It comes down to execution on Friday night, right?
Yeah, and you're preparing for them from a schematic standpoint, but you're also trying to prepare for the speed and physicality at which they do it. And when you got a scout team that isn't used to getting in a 4-point stance and veering up and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, or a quarterback who's not used to giving that read option or making that read option, the scheme is one thing where you can say, hey, this guy, you're on dive, you're on quarterback, you're on pitch, or whatever the case may be. But when they're coming at you twice as fast and twice as hard because they do it, and they do it in their sleep starting in 3rd grade. So they're well coached, and you see that from quality programs like Mishawaka.
We're going to take a quick timeout, come back with our conversation with Mike Davidson, the head football coach at Mishawaka Marian High School. His team will be on the road at TCU Freed Field, and they'll be doing that tomorrow night, 7:30 with the kickoff. Mike will be on with the Hall of Famer Chris Giesman and Matt Hopsey. They'll join us for the call, and that'll be 30 minutes prior to kickoff. Is that right?
Yep, we'll go at 7 o'clock.
7 o'clock, there you have it. We'll be back with more right here on the Globe and Regional Radio Sports. We're back here to Bethel Brady's, State Road 23 in Granger, Indiana. A very special guest here in our first segment is Mike Davidson, the head football coach of Mishawaka Marian. And, before we continue to talk about your offense, your defense, special teams, I want to highlight some of those guys. I want to take a little bit of a sidebar journey and talk about one of your favorite Marian Knights of all time. Certainly one of mine, Xander Horvath, who has done something very unique. Of course, he's playing for the Chargers. He has caught touchdown passes in his first 2 games of his career. That is the first time that has happened in the National Football League since 1942. How about that?
It's been a while.
What a great kid, and what a wonderful success story.
I couldn't be happier for him. I remember, I was the defensive coordinator.
Sure.
I came back, I guess it was his sophomore year. He had an injury that year. Then junior year, he had a really nice year. We made a nice run. And then senior year, the talk from everyone other than, frankly, Army, or I think it was Army, if I'm not mistaken. Everybody else wanted to look at him at linebacker. And so, sure, I'll play the best kid on our team at linebacker. That's a
no-brainer.
That's a terrible thing to have happen. I mean, force my hand. So I got to work with him more that year than his previous 2. And one thing that Xander has had from the moment I met him is work ethic.
Oh,
I mean, he still comes. Now I haven't seen him, I don't know, in the last 6 months or so, but he'll still come back and he's home for a couple of weeks and he's in our gym and getting after it. And it's obviously the kids see Xander and they see the touchdowns, they see the jerseys and the draft and everything else, but even better they see, wait a minute, on June 17th when we're working out, Xander's coming in as we're getting out, or vice versa, and that's what's gotten him there. And in that respect, I'm not shocked at all as far as he's always had the work ethic. Am I a little shocked that he's made it really to the NFL? Absolutely. You don't just think that is for every kid you see on the football field on a Friday night.
All right, so let's talk about who's playing well offensively for the Marian Knights. Who's playing well?
Offensively, we got a little scat back, Brian Osmond, who's had a nice. We didn't want to depend on him for 15 to 20 carries. He's only 5'6" on a good day, and 100 maybe 40 pounds. But he does a nice job in our zone schemes, getting behind the line and finding the seam. So he's had a nice run since whenever Pino went down week 2, Celeste, about 3-4 weeks. And then, on the perimeter, Jack Darrell and on there, he's probably William Owens, but he goes by Deuce Owens. Those guys have been making some plays for us in the passing game. Chase Bays has come on as well. He had a knee thing over the summer that limited him early on in camp, so we were able to get him back, I think, week 3 or 4 finally, and he's been making some plays for us in the passing game. Bryce has done a nice job, and up front, we're figuring things out up there. We got a couple of guys in Kyle Dennison, Mike Fuller, that we're asking to go both ways, offensively and defensively. But we've had some guys step up to limit those, and hopefully that balancing moving, down the road, we aren't going to have, 4 or 5 guys going both ways come sectional time.
Flip it over to the other side of the football. Who's playing well?
Up front, Kyle Dennison's been doing a tremendous job. Defensively on the line, we move him from tackle to end, strong side to weak side, depending on what we need him at. And he's done an awesome job. Caleb Johnson's come on. He's a sophomore. We got a great sophomore class I'm really excited about. But
how many sophomores you got?
Overall, 29 in the program.
Oh my goodness.
Right now we're rotating somewhere around 13, 14, 15 that get significant snaps on one side of the ball or the other.
Wow.
in special teams. So, but Caleb Johnson, he's really sort of figured it out at defensive end in the last couple of weeks. He's playing a lot more physical. At linebacker, Aiden Kelly's had a few injury bugs, but he's getting it. He's fitting it nicely. On the back end, Brian Boltink really, as much as anything leadership-wise, he's a quiet kid, but he's a returning starter, senior, and it's sort of been forced. The first 2, maybe 3 weeks, not quite the vocal leader we needed him to be. The last 2 weeks, he's really stepped up his game.
When you look at this group, and I know that you find yourself in an uncharacteristic situation from a record standpoint, and I know you're not about records, even though yours is dynamic at 43 and 15. I know that it takes a certain amount of courage to say that I'm going to play 13 to 15 10th graders, and people who may or may not understand the dynamics, but 1 year in the maturation of a high school kid, from whether it be a sophomore year to his junior year or a junior to senior year, that is huge.
Oh, yeah.
From an experience standpoint and a physical standpoint.
Without a
And
doubt.
now if you're going to be taking on a senior-laden team, now you've asked 13 to 15 kids to step up and play against sometimes 18
Twice,
and maybe
yeah,
19-year-old kids.
Yep.
And that is a huge physical difference, especially if it's a program like the programs that you have currently on your everyday schedule. So talk about making sure that they understand that, hey, listen, there are going to be times where you're going to get your butt literally handed to you.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be discouraged, because 2 years from now when you're a senior, you're going to be doing the same thing to somebody else. So how do you keep especially the young kids, I'm speaking strictly from their standpoint, emotionally, mentally together?
So we've had an interesting, so our senior class is small. It came in as 13. Of the 10 remaining, only 5 of them were actually played as freshmen. So we've had 5 others who, a couple of guys who just decided to come out, a couple of more guys that transferred from other schools over their 4 years here. So since this senior class was freshmen, we've been unable to have a freshman team, just because when they were sophomores, you only got 10 sophomores and maybe 5 juniors. Well, we got to bump up the freshmen that year to make a JV team. So really, the juniors and the sophomores have been playing against older physical teams at the JV level for the last couple of years. So that has helped. I think that has benefited them as far as understanding. I'm okay with I'm going to get my shot. I'm okay having a little bit less physical maturation. The difference really is the experience level that you spoke about of. If I'm a senior, even if, I started 4 games or rotated as a junior, that's still that experience at the varsity level versus a first-time sophomore from a mental standpoint. That maturity level is such a big difference. And so, I am hard. Believe me, a lot of the players will comment that I can get a little grouchy sometimes. But at the same time, I've tried to be cheerleader as well, which is a little strange for me. I'm not the rah-rah type of guy. But at the same time, that's an important piece for them to understand that, I'm going to ride you, but I'm going to build you up. And I want you to understand that there's going to be difficult times, and keep a positive framework about it, keep a positive mind about it, and things are going to work out.
East-West Division of the Northern Indiana Conference. New Prairie 2-0, Penn 1-0. Marian and St. Joe both at 1-1, Elkhart at 0-1, and Adams at 0-2. And obviously some big games coming up because you're going to be hitting the majority of those teams down the back stretch. So you're right in the hunt here. I don't think you can honestly say that New Prairie's the best team there or Penn's the best team there. I think right now there's still much, there's a lot of football to play before you can say so-and-so is heads and tails above the rest. And I think that you guys still have got a chance if you just fundamentally do what you're supposed to do, right?
Without a doubt. And that's, you look back the last, this is our 3rd year in the excuse me, not
Big
the
school.
big school.
Yeah.
It's the East-West, right?
Yeah.
And each year there's been sort of a round robin that's happened. Whatever it was, 2 years ago, we beat Penn, and then they beat New Prairie or something along those lines,
Yeah.
where we ended up sharing. Then last year it was flipped, and so there's a lot of football left, and it starts for tomorrow as far as a championship level effort and focus, and certainly we expect a championship level atmosphere and focus and effort from the Penn Kingsmen as well.
I'm going to close talking about our favorite friend who's up in Michigan. I have not talked to Reggie Glahn lately, and I know that you probably keep in contact with. How's this team up in Michigan doing?
It's been a couple of weeks. I know that they kicked off the first week beating the defending. I don't know Michigan's level.
Yeah, there's 97 divisions up there.
Exactly,
I get it.
but it was the defending state champion, and so it was a huge win for their program, coming off a playoff appearance last year. So he was. Reggie.
Yeah,
he's always a positive, and always the things are bright, and so with that now it's wait a minute, no, all these things that he's been preaching to his kids. Yeah. They really are believing. So he's doing a great job up there and having a blast.
If you talk to him, give him my best.
Will do, absolutely.
Mike, thanks for coming out. Appreciate you. Good luck tomorrow against Penn.
Absolutely, thank you.
Mike Davidson, the head football coach of Mishawaka Marian. Come back after the timeout. We're going to be talking with Thiago Pinto, the men's soccer coach at Bethel University. They are having a monster year over at Maury Field. We'll get some thoughts from TP right after the timeout. Live from Bethel Brady's will return right after this on Regional Radio Sports.
Hey.
Welcome back here on Regional Radio Sports. Glad you can join us here tonight for the Coach's Box. Special thanks to my good friend Mike Davidson for taking time to come out and spend some time with us here today. One of my favorite people over at Bethel University is Thiago Pinto, longtime coach at BU and a tremendous ambassador for education-based athletics in the Christian environment that Bethel provides. Coming up this year, we're currently ranked at number 13 in the NAIA. This team currently 7-1-1. TP, please help me if I'm off on my numbers here, but I think next time out you're going for victory number 170. Not too bad.
That's news to me. I didn't know that.
But 7-1-1. Are you excited about where you guys are at?
Yeah, it's a good start. I think we haven't reached a place that we're great. I mean, it's still midpoint of the season. Conference play is about to start, league play, and good start, but long way to go. And we're still, ask me at the end of the season. That's what I've kind of learned over the years that when you really go through more than just one spell of adversity.
One case in point, you started the season with a win against our good friend Omar Gallo over at Holy Cross, but then 3 consecutive ranked teams, Southeastern out of Florida, the Cumberlands, and then Central Methodist, currently ranked number 3 in the country. That's a 1-goal loss there. So
right.
Can you talk about the importance of playing really good non-league hyper teams that can really extend you, but most importantly, expose your weaknesses?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. We're envisioning at the end of the season we're going to be at the national tournament and be ready for those moments. And last year we were 1 game away from moving on to the final site in the Elite 8, and so we want to get ourselves ready by playing those teams. And that's what we did. Central Methodist won the 2 national titles in recent years, and Lindsey Wilson's a perennial NAIA powerhouse. Our program has never beaten Lindsey at Lindsey. I don't think we've beaten Lindsey at all. And so this year was an important win to beat them there. Was great as well. So we started here. I mean, we played an exhibition against Notre Dame, which came in the country at ranked number 4. So that really helped us as well. Face that challenge. You got to play the top teams to kind of really learn and kind of see where you're at.
As you know, with the other coaches in your building, each one of the sports, they look at up and down the line at the Crossroads League. whether it be men's basketball or like we're seeing last night with the women's volleyball team knocking off the third-ranked team in the country. You know that perennial you're going to have 4 or 5 teams ranked in that upper tier of the NEI national tournament series. However, this year only you guys and the Grace Lancers are ranked in that upper echelon. But you got some teams that are on the cusp receiving both. Indiana Wesleyan is one of those teams. Do you think that preseason schedule is equal to that league schedule, or you think maybe some of the teams in the league just are not getting enough love?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both, but I think it's the conference play is different. You know, it's sometimes it can be more difficult. You know, and you got to be motivated. You got to be prepare your team in a way that you respect your opponent. And if you don't show up, anything can happen. And you know, it's any given day things can happen, and those games can be very, very tight in conference.
I talked to Katie Weiss last night prior to our game. We were doing the volleyball broadcast, and she was so upset the way her team played last Friday against St. Francis, and went on the road and got beat. Played okay against Indiana Wesleyan the next day. And so what do? Last night they beat the number 3 ranked team, give them their first loss. But what she's been concerned of is her team's mindset and their emotional stability in regards to they're playing to the level of their competition. Let me ask you this about your group. Does your group play to the level of their competition?
A little bit. Yeah, honestly, yeah, and that's what we've seen. I mean, we've gotten up. It's easy to play against the top teams. You get up to play. You're motivated. You're ready. But some of the teams you think we should win, and your approach is a little bit different. So that's what we're trying to find ways where but it's got to be within. It's got to be an intrinsic approach and a mindset that you show up every day of practice, and doesn't matter what games, you got to have a level of drive to perform, you know, with excellence.
Coach, I want to go all the way back to the first game of the season where you guys played Holy Cross the last time. I've seen the Pilots. Tell me a bit about that halftime chat that you guys had. 1-1 at halftime. That game finished at 6-1.
Right.
What did you have in the tank for that one? My goodness.
I don't know if I can share in here. No, it was just sometimes you got to, you know, bring the passion and you know, we're playing decently okay. I think we're actually playing really well until we scored, until we got relaxed. And I think, you know, the second half was just, you know, you can't let the moments go away. You can't have a game back. You can have. We still had 45 minutes, and I think the guys responded. And so, you know, with what Paul you're saying earlier, sometimes every team, you know, as you grow through a season, and you go through ups and downs, and you hope when you go through your lows, you learn so much. You learn from that you can, the next time you have another low, you don't go as low as you went the last time, and you're better off when your response, and you can. And we've seen that a little bit this year when we've had twice where we kind of had a little bit lower performance, but we still managed to win the game. And so.
One of the things that's amazing, and I know most people don't understand the dynamics, but I'm just going to give our listening audience a look at some of the hometowns of some of these kids. Germany, Brazil, Colombia, Zambia, Peru, Bedford in the UK. Of course, we got some kids here locally, but you're all over the place. Mexico. Talk about recruiting. I mean, most you talk to Steve Draven, the men's coach. He says he's really started to expand his recruiting thing. But most of the coaches, you know, I'm going to recruit Indiana, maybe Michigan, maybe Chicagoland. That is certainly not the case with you. You have to know all the ins and outs. You have to have connections. You've made a living of those 169 wins that you've had at your alma mater. A lot of those have come from kids on the other side of the equator. So talk about the dynamics of recruiting internationally.
Yeah, it certainly helps. So you've been in for more than a decade, you know, close to 2 decades now, and you build good relationships. Soccer's more of a global game as well. And also then you find ways, you know what you're looking for, you know, the type of players and the fit. I mean, the demand, there's so many, they're more international. There's less kids graduating in U.S. high schools, and there are more internationals coming in, whether it's NAIA level, Division I, Division II. And so there's more out there. There's more demand, or there's more players than opportunities, than spots available. So there's plenty of kids out there. just finding the right fit and continue to cultivate those relationships both, within the U.S., domestic players, and overseas.
Same question, but almost exactly the opposite. Talk a bit about the state of soccer right around the South Bend area and just the Michiana region.
It's gone through, I would say a little bit of a desert. I think high school soccer's changed. I think you still have a lot of great players. I think there's still a really great thing to play for your school. But you have the last 10 years the growth of these full-time academies. So you have a lot of families driving to Indy many times during the week. So for their kids to play at a higher level, so they'll maybe go to to Indiana, Notre Dame, or even some of them going straight to the professional level. And we have a few here, from our area that have done that. And so it's changed the high school game, and then so there's a need here for more of a developmental academy in this area that will help progress some of these players into the college level. That's
what I'm curious about, because I've certainly watched soccer become much more popular. My high school didn't have soccer. I'm a 98 graduate. And as it's become a sport that is very easy to adopt at a very young age. You have one soccer ball, and then all of a sudden you're learning some fundamentals that way. What do you think some of the next steps are for just like that, your local average Indiana high school to be able to develop higher skilled players? Is that a coaching knowledge gap that's there right now?
I think it's a combination of a lot of things. Obviously, I think coaches, having great coaches help. And I think you have a lot of schools in this area that have had great history and tradition in soccer, but it's difficult to compete with the academies. And but I think it's having the clubs providing more opportunity for kids, especially after middle school, because you look at the numbers. There's a lot of kids from when they're from 8 until 12. That's one of the numbers in soccer is very high. It's as high as baseball, football, and basketball, if not higher. But the problem is 12 and 13, a lot of them quit soccer.
Thiago, when we first started regional radio sports 30-some-odd years ago, I'll never forget sitting down and having some conversations at one of our soccer shows out in Northwest Indiana. And at that point in time in the early 90s and even through the late 90s, most of the college or most of the high school coaches would say, and I would ask them this question, who was the most influential soccer coach in Indiana? And invariably, you're going to talk about Jerry Yeagley at Indiana University. So we're going to move this to fast forward to in the 2022. Who would you say now is the most influential soccer guy or gal in the state of Indiana? Regardless of whether it be a high school coach, a high school player, or if it's a college coach or a college athlete, who do you think are the most influential?
I would say it's somebody who just recently retired, not too long ago, but he was in Notre Dame for close to 15 years. So it was Bobby Clark, we call him Boss, from Scotland, but coached a spell in Dartmouth and then Stanford, and spent most of his time at Notre Dame, and fantastic career. More than that, incredible human being, humble. He's the type of guy that, summer camps as a head coach, a lot of these, top schools, you have assistants who are well qualified and can run. He was there every camp, stayed on campus. He's the type of guy that will tie the shoe of a camper during summer camp. And just there's so much that I've learned from him, during my time here that it'd be hard to say someone else because he's such an influence in this area. All he'd say is it's all about who you are, where you are, and what you represent.
Once again, we're glad you joined us. We're going to take a quick time out. We've got to pay a couple bills. We'll be back with Thiago Pinto, the head football coach at Bethel University. We'll be back with the men's coach of the Pilots right after this on the Regional Radio Sports Network. Welcome back here to Bethel Brady's. Glad you can join us here tonight on the Coach's Box. I'm Paul Condry alongside Mike Fleischman. Glad that you've spent Thursday night with us. And, of course, we encourage you to stick around. Make sure if you missed the program tonight or just caught a tail of an end of it, don't forget our good friend Andrew Kirksey will have the link up on the website, and you can listen to the podcast. And, of course, in a couple weeks, we have one of our Legends programs coming out here, and I know Mike Davidson will want to be in on this one because he'll have a chance to listen to Bill Doba, Chris Giesman, Bill Sharp, and Phil Teagarden. All four are going to be here. We'll have the live video of that one going on, and that will be a dandy coming up. I believe it's the 6th, 7th, or 8th of October, so that should be a good one. So, anyways, getting back to Thiago Pinto, the 6th of October. Okay, thank you. All right, so TP, one of the things that I think that a lot of people may or may not know that is as a guy who's bilingual and you have an opportunity to speak, especially to Latin American kids all across the globe, is that a big factor in your ability to communicate with them, or is there other things around that?
Yeah, it certainly helps, but I wouldn't say it's the main thing. I think the main thing is just the ability to connect with people, and I think value people and relationships, and I think have a perception or a perspective in the way, an approach to coaching that it's about helping people grow through the sport.
When you look at your ability to, because this is your mission field, most people may or may not understand that coaching may not necessarily, some people look at it as their job, but this is not the case for you. I mean, your degrees in ministry, and one of the things that this is something that's been a passion for you, is you have bloomed where God has planted you. There's been no question about that. So talk about the importance from a ministry standpoint, the ability to reach the students that you're engaged with and through your faith.
I mean, it's everything. It's what makes Bethel a special place to coach, just the ability to really equip young men to become men of faith and equip them with tools to be great leaders. It's not just about, following Christ, but it's also understanding leadership and influence and being servant leaders and being able to go, whether you're going to be a missionary, a doctor, going to the business worlds, that you're able to be influential, and it's great that we can do that through the game.
Mike Fleischman, you got the roster there. I'm not even going to attempt to take on some of those names, but TP, give us an idea on who's playing really well for you right now.
The collective. I think that's my coach's answer tonight. But I can, highlight some guys that have put in a lot of work over the years, and we have a good mix of young guys and upperclassmen, and I think Tim Noting, somebody who's played for me in the summer league, and he's done very well this year. You have two guys who are competing up top and scoring goals with Piero and Luan. So those guys have kind of been very consistent, but as a whole, I think a lot of guys are doing well as a collective unit.
Coach, how about this season that Finn Popescu is having so far? What's your take on him and through the first 8?
Yeah, I mean he's your culture guy as well. He's one of our two team captains, and just his commitment and just kind of setting the culture and the approach. I think he's done well, and I think he knows he can still progress to the next level even within this year. But he's a senior. He's been around for more than just one goal.
When you look at the roster, is there a student athlete on there that has exceeded your expectations thus far?
Yeah, I mean, like touch base one, I think he's done very well in terms of scoring the number of goals early on this year, and is kind of on the top of the NAIA for top 3, I believe, in goals scored in the year so far, and those goals really count.
All right, so now it gets real for you guys. I've got St. Francis, Indiana Wesleyan. After you get into this whole conference thing stuff coming up, and of course Indiana Wesleyan receiving votes are going to be at their place, but the game that you could circle on your calendar, if you're going to pick out one Bethel men's game to go to all season long, I'm going to suggest that you make it Saturday, October 15th, 5 o'clock fair over at Morey Field. You have the 8th-ranked Grace Lancers. The last thing you want to do is get caught looking ahead, because there are 2 or 3 teams in advance of that who are going to be formidable, and they're going to want to knock you on your backside. But having said that, how do you prevent, and Mike Davidson's probably gone through this before too, how do you prevent student athletes from looking ahead, knowing that so 2 or 3 weeks from now, I have the chance to rewrite history, if you will?
Yeah, I think it starts with us and in the way we prepare them. And it's one game at a time. It's not something we do new now. It's from the first game of the season. It's the most important game we have is in our next game, because you're only as good as your last game, and we've got to make sure we approach our game this Saturday against St. Francis. This is it's a final. It's the game we have to play. We don't know. We don't know what next Wednesday is too far, and that's the way we approach it.
So this 5-game winning streak, what's been special about this 5-game winning streak? What have you done better than you thought that you would have done?
I think we've been consistent in really scoring goals and restarts or set pieces, and in a way that we have not maybe done as much in the past. So that's helped us really capitalize and win some games or get up certain games that would have been probably a different challenge.
I know that you and Omar Gallo, the coach over at Holy Cross, have really taken this game to a whole nother level with your professional associations. I believe Omar also has the United States Soccer Federation B license. Can you talk about the importance of having those accreditations when you look forward in your career?
Yeah, those are great courses. I mean, Omar has done the UEFA A, and I was able to finish the A license here in the U.S. as well. So I mean, those are great opportunities to be around top level coaches and grow as a coach and be able to be better equipped to help our student athletes.
I know you're excited. In addition to the success your team has had, you've become a granddad now, and
that's right.
How's life changed for you?
Oh, it's amazing. Yeah, so we love it. My wife and I just can't get enough. So our daughter asked, can somebody watch Hudson, our grandson, and we're fighting to take him.
Well,
he almost made the show tonight.
Well, I'll tell you what, welcome anytime. Hey, man, congratulations on the great start, 7-1-1. Keep up the great work. I appreciate you making the effort to come out to be here with us today.
Thank you for inviting me.
So very proud of what you've been able to do.
It's a busy season. I appreciate you guys as well for just the longevity of your impact, and especially in Indiana, and we appreciate it. Thank you.
Once again, special thanks to Thiago Pinto for joining us. Just a quick look ahead at some games that we've been talking about. Mike and I have been talking about. Of course, Mike will be tomorrow. He'll be live at 7 o'clock. Is that
yes,
right?
Yes, indeed. 7 Eastern time.
It just seems so weird because I'm on the air. I have long before ESPN did ESPN Game Day. We were doing ESPN Game Day before they even thought of it. Did you know that?
I did.
Okay, you did know that. So
it might have come up once or twice.
Having said that, tomorrow, Bremen at Glenn, Elkhart at South Bend, St. Joe, Marian at Penn, we talked about that, Adams at New Prairie, Clay at Jimtown, Riley at Washington. Over in that other really pretty good football league over here in the Northern Lakes, it's going to be Goshen is going to be matched up at Concord. It'll be Mishawaka at Warsaw. Tell you what, that ain't going to be a great game.
Oh, that's a really
play a little
one.
Bart ball with the boys from Northwood. That will be a dandy of an affair, especially after Warsaw took it on the chin against Northwood earlier. Northwood will be, or I should say, Mishawaka and Warsaw. That's the Bart ball game. Northwood will be at Plymouth, and Wabasee will be at Northridge. So there you have our games. Once again, thanks to our coaches tonight, Mike Davidson, as well as Thiago Pinto. And once again, we thank you for making us a part of your evening. Don't forget, check out the podcast with all the broadcasts, all the video broadcasts. We had Indiana University South Bend men's and women's basketball media today. All those videos will be up on the website, courtesy of Andrew Kirksey. That'll be coming up a little bit later on this weekend. So a slew of things going on. Check the calendar. And for all of us at Regional Radio Sports, for Mike Fleischman, I'm Paul Condry. God bless you all. Semper Fidelis. Good night, everyone.